In the last class, for performance analysis, we have learnt about space complexity with some examples, right? With one simple example, which has one written statement. In that, we had all the arithmetic operations, and we have seen the variables used are fixed size. So we have to pass those three variables. So the space required for that particular algorithm, it was constant. Then we have discussed about iterative summation. Then we have discussed about recursive summation. These two algorithms depends on the instance characteristics. The space required for these two algorithms depends on the instance characteristics. What is instance characteristics there? It is n. That is number of elements in the list or number of elements in the array, right? So we have discussed that. Today we'll discuss the concept of time complexity. So this is very important concept in design and analysis of algorithms. For almost all the algorithms which we are going to study, we are going to calculate time complexity. What is the time required for this algorithm? We are going to do that. Okay. So for all the algorithm which we are going to study in this subject. So name itself suggests design and analysis. So we are going to analyze the major concept, that is time complexity. Okay, time taken by the program. So today we'll begin the concept of time complexity. Time complexity or time T of P taken by a program P is the sum of the compile time and the runtime or execution time. Runtime is also called as execution time, right? So here we can consider time taken by a program. It's equal to the sum of compile time and the runtime. The compile time does not depend on the instance characteristic. Compile time does not depend on the instance characteristics. Also, we may assume that a compiled program will be run several times without recompilation. So what happens if you want to check the same program for 10 different output? 10 different inputs. Same program, I have to check for 10 different inputs. So if that is the case, I'll compile it once. If I don't get any error, if I get error, I'll debug it. If I don't get any error, I'll start executing it. Right? Once I compile it, I'll not compile it again and again. Instead, what I'll do, I'll just give 10 different inputs one at a time and check the output. So that is the concept here. So once it is compiled and it is working, we are not going to recompile. We're not going to recompile. Okay. Wait for a minute. So the compile time does not depend on the instance characteristic. And once the program is compiled, we are not going to compile it again and again. We can run it several times by giving different inputs without compiling. Okay. So here we are interested in runtime. Okay. We are interested in runtime. So consequently, we concern ourselves with just the runtime of the program. This runtime is denoted by TP of instance characteristic. So space complexity we have specified denoted using SP of instance characteristic. So here runtime, time taken by a program, is denoted by TP of instance characteristics. So if we know the characteristic of compiler to be used before itself, that is, we could proceed to determine the number of additions, subtraction, multiplications, division, compares, loads, stores, and so on. That would be made by the code for P. So for example, consider your code contains all these operations. The code contains all these operations, that is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, comparison, loading to the register, for example, or loading to the memory, storing to the memory, and so on. All these operations, if it is having, that is your code, if it is having all these operations, and if we know the compiler characteristic, that is how much it will time take for addition, how much it will take time for subtraction, how much it will take time for multiplication. If we know the that is compiler characteristic, then we can determine the value of TP of n directly. That is like TP of n is equal to CA into add of n plus CS into sub of n plus CM into multiplication of n, and then plus CD into division of n plus so on. For all the operations you can include which is having which is there in the which is there in your program. Okay, but here, and then n denotes the instance characteristics, and CA, CS, CM, CD and so on denote the time needed for addition, time needed for subtraction, time needed for multiplication, time needed for division and so on. So time needed for addition into add of n, that is how many additions we have. Okay, CA is time needed for one addition. Addition of n is add of n is how many additions we have in your program. Okay, so that is the time taken for addition. Plus CS. CS is time required for one subtraction. Time required for one subtraction, and sub of n, it is the number of subtraction which is there in your program. Similarly, CM is the time required for multiplication, one multiplication, and mul of n, it is the number of multiplications in your program. CD is time required for one division, and div of n, it is the number of divisions in your program. So if we add all this, that is if we know the characteristics of the compiler, that is it will take this amount of time in for this particular operation, then only we can write like this. And add, sub, mul, div and so on are functions whose values are the number of additions, subtraction, multiplication, divisions and so on that are performed when the code for P is used on the instance characteristic with, that is instance characteristic n. Obtaining such an exact formula is itself an impossible task. Okay, because we'll not be knowing time taken for each operation. It is very difficult. So it is almost equal to impossible task. Since the time needed for an addition, subtraction, multiplication and so on often depends on the numbers being added, subtracted, multiplied and so on, and the system which we are going to use also. The value of TP of n for any given n can be obtained only experimentally. Experimentally means we have to convert the algorithm into program. We have to type it, we have to compile it, and we have to run it. Okay, type it, compile it, and run it on a particular system and get the time taken for it. Okay, once you execute it, the execution time is physically clocked and TP of n can be obtained. Assuming that the time required by each is relatively independent of the instance characteristics, we can obtain a count for the total number of operations. We can just obtain, that is, we are assuming that time required for each executable statement, it is independent of the instance characteristic. That means it doesn't depend on the value of n. So we can obtain a count for the total number of operations. Okay, we can obtain the count for total number of operations. That is, we can go one step further and count only the number of program steps. Okay, there are two methods to determine the number of steps needed by a program. Today we'll discuss one method. In the next class, we'll discuss another method. Okay. So what is that first method? A new variable count is introduced into the program. This is a global variable with initial value 0. A new variable count is introduced into the program. This is a global variable with initial value 0. statements to increment count by the appropriate amount are introduced into the program. We have to include the count with the statements where we want to increment or where we want to get the count. This is done so that each time a statement in the original program is executed, count is incremented by the step count of that statement. So for example, if I am displaying printf, if I am using printf statement and displaying something, it's an executable statement, right? It's an executable statement. So include count with this. That is, include count before this or after this. So it will increment the count by 1. So printf, it's an executable statement. So count is equal to 1, for example. Then if you have scanf, then that is also considered as one step. So increment the count by 1. If we have for loop, it depends on the, that is how many times that for loop will be executed. If it executes n number of times, then it will be n. So consider, let's see how for loop works. So initially we have taken a is equal to 1, a less than 5 and a plus plus, and then we are simply displaying print, that is we are displaying the value of a. So when a is equal to 1, it will check the condition whether it is less than 5 and it will display that. And then again it will increment the value of a will be incremented, a becomes 2, and then again it will check with the condition whether a is less than 5, then it will display it. If it is less than 5, it will display. Then a will be incremented to 2, it will check the condition, then it will display 2. Then a will be incremented 3, 3 less than 5, display 3. Then increment a 4, 4 less than 5, then display 4. Then it is 5 incremented. So condition is false. 5 less than 5, condition is false. So it will come out of the loop. So you can see that when we have the value from 1 to 5, 1 to 5, here condition is a less than 5, only 4 times it got executed for 1, 2, 3, 4. And for the 5th time, only that comparison operation checked. That is for false case, but it has not displayed the value of a because their condition is false. So 5 is not displayed. I hope you understood the concept of for loop working. You know this concept, but just to brush up the concept, I have included this slide. Okay, because I want this for explaining time complexities. It is very important because usually all the algorithms will be having the looping statements like for loop, while loop, do while loop will be having that. So if you know how to get the calculate the step count for it, then it will be very easier for writing the time complexity. That's why I have included this. So I hope you understood. When we have the value of a from 1 to 5 and the condition is a is less than 5. For true condition, for true cases, it checked for 4 times. It checked for 4 times. That is a less than 5 is checked for 4 times for true condition. And when it becomes 5 less than 5, condition becomes false. So 5 times it will check the comparison. Okay, so consider the algorithm which we have discussed in the last class, that is iterative function for the sum. I'll not explain how it works because you know how it works already, right? So we'll be having the for loop for I is equal to 1 to n. So it will keep on adding the value present in the array to the variable yes, and at the end it will return that value yes, right? You know that. So this is the algorithm. So algorithm sum a comma n. Again I have considered this because we have to include count statement within this. Okay, we have to include count statement within this. So s is equal to 0.0. We are initializing the value of yes. Now you increment or include the count variable here and increment it. So count is equal to count plus 1. So you can see the comment, single line comment we have, count is global, it is initially 0. So count is global variable which is already initialized to 0 and s is equal to 0.0. It's an executable statement, so count it. So count is equal to count plus 1. I hope you are getting. So count is equal to count plus 1. We are counting that statement. Which statement? S is equal to 0. S is equal to 0. It's an executable statement. So count it. Then for I is equal to 1 to n, do. Remember, for the for loop, comparison is the basic operation. For the for loop, comparison is the basic operation, or the operation that is going to perform in the for loop is main operation is comparison, that we are going to consider for time complexity. Okay, comparison. So when we have I is equal to 1 to n, this comparison will run for n number of times. Okay, this comparison will run for n number of times. So for that comparison, include the count inside the for loop. Count is equal to count plus 1. That is for loop comparison. Okay, that is for loop comparison. So increment it. Comparison, it's an executable statement. So increment the count. Then S is equal to S plus A of I. This is also executable statement. For this also you include the increment the count. So count is equal to count plus 1 for this also. So S is equal to S plus A of I. It's an executable statement. So increment the count here. What this count represent? This count represents executable program step. Okay, executable program step. So we are going to count how many executable program steps are there in our program. Okay, so count is equal to count plus 1 for the for loop comparison. Then S is equal to S plus A of I. This one is for assignment. Which assignment? S is equal to S plus A of I. Okay, this is an assignment and it's an executable statement. So increment the count. Understood? Then count is equal to count plus 1. This is for the last time of for loop. That is for false case. Okay, we have to include for false case also, because once the condition becomes false, it will not enter into the loop. Okay, it will not enter into the loop. So n times for true case and 1 time for false case, comparison will execute. Okay, just remember this. And then count is equal to count plus 1. This statement is for return, because we know that once we return from the algorithm, once we return from the function, it will not come back to execute it. We know that, right? So here what we have to do, we have to include the count statement before returning from the function or before returning from the algorithm. So I hope you understood this concept. So now we'll count how many number of executable statements are there for this algorithm. So you can count. Okay, so first statement, S is equal to 0.0. It will execute 1 times, right? So 1 plus, then for I is equal to 1 to n, this comparison will be checked. For true cases I'm writing. For true cases, it will be n number of times, right? For true cases, it will be n number of times. Then S is equal to S plus A of 5. If the condition is true, then only it will execute this statement, right? S is equal to S plus A of 5. How many times the condition will be true? So n times the condition will be true. So this assignment statement, S is equal to S plus A of 5, also executes n number of times. Okay, I hope you are getting. Then plus 1 for the false case of the for loop. Okay, plus 1 for the false case of the for loop. Then plus 1 for the return statement. So total it is 2n plus 3. Okay, I hope you understood the concept here. Okay, in for loop, the value of count will increase by a total of 2n. What is that 2n? 1 for the comparison and 1 for the comparison and 1 for the assignment. Okay, one for comparison and one for assignment. Okay, then if count is 0 to start with, we are starting the value of count is equal to 0, then it will be 2n plus 3 on termination. I told you what is the 3 also. One is for s is equal to 0.0, one is for false case of the for loop, and one is for return statement. So for iterative summation, we have 2n plus 3 number of steps. Okay, then let's consider recursive summation. So this is the algorithm for recursive summation. So this also we have discussed in the last class. So I'll not tell you how it works because you know that, right? So we have included count statement within this. So you can notice count is equal to count plus 1. This is for the if condition. Okay, count is equal to count plus 1. This is for the if condition. That is this if condition. Okay, then that is if n is less than or equal to 0. If n is less than or equal to 0, then we are returning the value 0. So that for that return statement, that is also executable statement, right? So for return 0 also we have to include the count. So count is equal to count plus 1 for the return inside the if statement. Okay, then for else also we have a return statement. In this return statement, what we have the addition function and calling function, that is recursive function. We are calling the adsum function again. So function invocation is also there. So for that we are considering it as one count. Okay, so increment the value of count by 1 for this. So how many count statements we have here? We have 3 count statements. Okay, we have 3 count statements. One is for the if condition, that is whether it is true or false. Whether it is true or false, so it will count, that is how many times this comparison will be executed. We know that when we call this recursive sum, every time this if condition will be executed to check whether the value of n is less than 0 or not. So count will be incremented for this, and then if it is true, if the condition is true, then only it will enter into the if block. In this if block, we have a return statement, return 0.0. For this also we have included one count statement, that is incremented count. And then in else also we have a return statement. For this also we are going to increment the count. Okay. So when analyzing a recursive program, for its step count, we often obtain a recursive formula for the step count, usually called as recurrence relation. Okay, the recursive formula for the recursive program, it is usually called as recurrence relation. We are going to obtain that formula we are going to obtain. So TR sum of n is equal to 2. Okay, 2 count is 2. If you can notice here, you can notice here that is if this condition is true. Okay, if this condition is true, this count will be executed and this count will be executed. So 1 and 2 if the condition is true. Okay, if the condition is false, this statement and this statement will be executed. Okay, I hope you're getting. Okay, if condition is false, that is if statement condition is false, it will execute the statement and it will execute the statement. Whether the condition is true or false, initially it will increment the count by 2. Okay, it will increment the count by 2. That is, if the condition is true, then the count outside the if statement and count inside the if statement. Okay, if condition is false, then count outside the if statement and count inside the else part. So 2 count will be executed every time. Remaining count will be for recursive call. Okay, remaining count will be for recursive call. So TR sum of n is equal to 2 if n is equal to 0. If the condition is true, if n is equal to 0, less than or equal to 0, then it will execute count, it will increment the count by 2. So TR sum of n is equal to 2 if n is equal to 0. Okay, if n is equal to 0. Otherwise, TR sum of n is equal to 2 plus TR sum of n minus 1. Okay, whatever might be the count for TR sum of n minus 1, every time it will be added. Usually it will be 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Like this, it will add until the recursive summation terminates. Okay, we see that TR sum of 0 is equal to 2. Okay, you can notice with the recurrence relation. When n is greater than 0, count increases by 2 plus whatever increase results from the invocation of R sum from within the else clause. So this is your assignment. Okay. Obtain step count for the algorithm matrix addition. You can take the screenshot of this. Okay, you can take the screenshot of this and tell me in the next class what is the step count for the algorithm. Okay, what is the step count for the algorithm matrix addition? You have to tell me in the next class. Okay, take screenshot for this algorithm. Okay, this is your assignment. Okay, if you have any doubts, you can ask me.